Un tad tā teikt, ķeramies klāt un aicinam ekspertus, mūs uzaicinātos ekspertus dalīties ar redzējumu pieredzi. Kā pirmo mēs aicinam atbildības tīklu stiprināšanas speciālists, tātad Transparency International sekretariātā Berlīnē. Dear Jorum, we are happy that you could join us from Berlin as far as I understand. So we are happy that, yes, we saw a little bit back the whole presentation. Maybe you can come back to the whole screen of the presentation. Is it working?
Yeah, thank you. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see your
Great.
screen.
Great, yeah. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity for me to present on this very interesting topic on public auditing of parliaments. So my presentation today is going to be on three main issues. The first one is just like the introduction on parliament and accountability. The second part will be on why public auditing of parliament matters, as well as the last part on practices on public auditing of parliaments within Europe. Then I'll just conclude with some main takeaways from my presentation. Now, parliaments, they play a very important role with their main three functions being lawmaking, representation, as well as oversight, that is like holding the government to account. Now, for the parliament to be able to perform these very important functions, they need substantial public funds. And according to the Global Parliamentary Report of 2017, which was published by the Interparliamentary Union and UNDP, it says that a majority of parliaments around the world have a great degree of control over their budget. That is, in terms of its preparation, allocation, as well as expenditure. Now, as such, since parliaments have great degree of control over their budgets, how it is allocated, as well as the expenditure, it is essential that they also be subjected to independent and public auditing of which then moves me to the next slide, which is on why it is important that we do public auditing of parliament. Now, the first reason that I think is important is that since parliament plays a very important role in holding the government to account, including on financial matters, it is important that it also leads by example. How can it lead by example? By making sure that it is also subjected to oversight by independent government institutions. That way, it will encourage continuous improvement and sustained confidence in the appropriate use of public funds and assets, as well as in the performance of public institutions. So if parliaments are then subjected to public auditing, I think it sends a very strong and clear message that public auditors should follow and scrutinize how public money is spent, even in parliament. The second reason or second factor on why it is important for public auditing of parliament is that it enhances citizens' trust in the parliament, it is financial activities. As you know, the public auditor usually releases a report, and that report would then it assures, or it will potentially assure citizens that parliament is actually using the public resources in a proper way, and that the resources are being properly managed and used for their intended purposes. Another reason I think why it's important for to have public auditing of parliament is that it has some accountability and deterrence values. Maybe just to explain it a bit further, there's this famous corruption formula by a renowned international expert, Robert Klitgaard, who says corruption is as a result of monopoly of power, discretion, but with little or no accountability. So how then do we reduce chances of corruption is if we increase accountability. So that's another way, how the public auditor then plays a role in ensuring that the parliament is actually becoming more accountable to the public. And there is a very interesting statement that I got from one Pietro Russo, who is a member of the European Court of Accounts, who said, the more independent an institution is because of its role in the legal system or its political role, the more accountable and transparent it should operate. And I think this is very important, particularly looking at parliaments that, they are independent institutions, and also they really enjoy, discretion, and, there are chances that there might be abuse of power, maybe, in different ways. But it's essential that, they are then becoming like, more accountable or more transparent in how they operate. Now, my final point on why public auditing matters is that it also provides incentives and evidence for change by, through, the audit reports, they provide like knowledge, comprehensive analysis, as well as well-founded recommendations for improvement in the use and management of resources by Parliament. I should say that these are not, exhaustive reasons why Parliament matters, auditing of Parliament matters. There could be some more reasons, but for the sake of this presentation, I've just focused on these 4. Now, moving on to like how public auditing is actually done. I think this slide is something that would be important to keep in mind as we are progressing with this presentation, because I think the next slides on practices, this is something which is quite important to bear in mind. So when there is public auditing, there are usually like the 3 main types of auditing that is done. The first one is on financial auditing, where the auditor scrutinizes whether an entity's financial information is presented in accordance with the applicable financial reporting and regulatory framework. It evaluates the accounting systems, transactions, and accounts of the entity, so as to offer an opinion as to the fairness or reliability of the financial statements, as well as to see if they are free from any material misstatements. And then the second one is performance audit, where now it focuses on whether interventions, programs, and institutions that are actually performing in accordance with the principles of economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, and if there is room for improvement. And then the last one is compliance audit, where now focusing on the activities, whether the activities, financial transactions, and information are in all material respects in compliance with the authorities which govern the audited framework. With the authorities, basically we're just meaning like the framework, and this could include rules, laws and regulations, budgetary resolutions, policy, it can be the fiscal policies, established codes, agreed terms, or the general principles of public financial management. So bearing in mind these 3 types of audit, how then the public auditor go about doing the auditing usually depends mainly on the legal framework which is applicable, on whether it allows for maybe 2 out of these 3 main types of audits, or whether it allows like all types of audits. Now, I think this is quite interesting. As I said, bear in mind my next point was point here on the public auditing of parliaments in Europe. I found this really interesting document from the European Court of Auditors from 2018, which looked at financing and auditing of parliament in Europe. And if you open that report on page 44, there's this very interesting diagram related to like how actually the public auditor is involved in like auditing of parliaments within Europe. Now, as you can see in the diagram here, there are like different colors for countries. The first one is on like the blue. The blue, I think you can say, is the majority, like countries like Sweden, Estonia, Poland, Germany, and Portugal, Spain, Ireland, United Kingdom, Hungary. All these countries, they actually allow the public auditor to actually audit the parliament on all these three types of audits that I talked about earlier, that is financial, compliance, as well as performance. Now, moving on to the ones in orange, which are also like fairly, or more. This is like the countries that only allow auditing of parliaments, but only related to financial as well as compliance. So these include countries like France, Netherlands, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Croatia. And then we have the countries in pink, and these countries, they do not allow for any auditing of parliament by the Auditor General. And this, as you can see, they are the minority, and these include like countries like Belgium, Latvia, Finland, Italy, and Denmark. So, but as you can see from this map, it is quite clear that a lot of European countries, they, to some extent, allow to a greater extent, actually allow the public auditor to actually be involved in auditing of the parliament, with at least maybe two of the three main types of audits. So just to give also just an explanation on, like, based on this very interesting report from the European Court of Auditors, it says like 16 European countries, in 16 European countries, the public auditors focus on all three forms of audits of parliaments. And some very interesting examples that I found was, for example, the Tribunal de Contas of Portugal. It says which can audit the parliament's building activities, or whether check whether the parliament is introducing accrual accounting properly. It can also look at particular aspects of the parliament's management, such as the manner in which the parliament's administration ensures that all the travel arrangements for parliamentarians are appropriately supervised. This is words from Vitor Caldeira, who was also the president of the Tribunal de Contas of Portugal. And also in Austria, the parliament's final accounts are also audited by the Court of Accounts, which thus, on the other hand, acts as parliament auxiliary body when performing its control function, and on the other hand, audits the correctness and accuracy of parliament's accounts. And the other countries that allow for public auditors, public auditing on parliament's budget, but only limited to financial and compliance audits are, France, Netherlands, Croatia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Romania. And the last ones in red here on the slide are that it's only 6 European countries in Europe, that is Latvia, Belgium, Luxembourg, Italy, Denmark, and Finland, who do not allow for public auditing of parliament. So I think the whole picture here, according to like in these 2 slides, is that it is actually the norm is that the public audit in Europe, the norm in Europe is that the public auditor is actually involved in auditing of the parliament, with only the exception of the countries that are yet to do so being these 6 European countries. Now, just to conclude this presentation, here are the main takeaways again, that public auditing of parliament is important. Why? Because it ensures that parliament lead by example on financial accountability to oversight institutions. It also ensures that, or enhances public confidence in parliament and its financial activities. It also has some deterrence and accountability values, where the parliament is more accountable to oversight institutions, and also that where there's more accountability, then there's also less likelihood of corruption because, fear of being detected. And the last point is also the reports from the Auditor General also could provide incentives and evidence for change. And lastly, as the last two slides showed, the practice actually in Europe is that a majority of countries allow for public auditing of parliament, and this is sort of a very good benchmark and something that I believe would be very, very great or important to just look at the practices from other countries that have had systems in place that allow for public auditing of parliaments, and it seems like in those countries it is working. So thank you very much for listening to this short presentation of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Jorum, for joining us and sharing this experience. It was very interesting and useful, of course, for our future discussion today, this afternoon.